I think that pride is by far one of the most destructive things that can happen in a relationship. And I think that pride is so destructive because it really does have the ability to negatively impact the connection that you have with your partner. It's a barrier, it's a roadblock, it is a stumbling block that really truly gets in the way of creating a safe space so that you can feel comfortable to be completely vulnerable and transparent with your partner. What does it look like when pride is present in your relationship? You have zero interest in apologizing. You are not willing to compromise, and you have a constant need to be right. It reminds me of a conversation that I had several years ago with someone, and they were explaining to me the dangers of needing to be right all the time. And what's so nuanced about that word right is this: you can actually be right, but how you go about delivering your right can be detrimental to the relationship. It can be detrimental to you. In other words, in some cases, people end up being dead right. And the wisdom that was shared with me all those years ago is that there will be times in your life where knowing in the depths of your knower that you are right should be enough. In other words, you don't have to make a public service announcement that you're right. You don't need to ram the fact that you're right down someone else's throat. You don't have to gloat about being right. You don't have to say, I told you so, and just admit it, I was right, I was right, I was right. Because what that suggests is that you being right is motivated by pride. You all know that I am a Christian therapist, but in that though, I really do follow my clients' lead regarding how much biblical principle or spirituality or religious practice that they want me to incorporate into their treatment, and we sort of collaborate on that. But I will tell you, one of the things that frequently has come up in couples therapy, particularly among my Christian clients, is that pride comes before a fall. That's what the Word of God tells us in Proverbs. Well, what is behind it, and what does that word fall mean? I think the word fall is open to interpretation, but when you look at the different ways that you can fall short in your relationship, self-centeredness is a way that pride shows up. It's all about you, what you want, what you need, what you feel, what you have to say, what your opinions are. And let me be clear. I want you to remember this term. It's called intellectual boundaries. Intellectual boundaries create space for both partners to be able to express in a healthy way, operative words being healthy, to express in a healthy way their thoughts, their feelings, their ideologies, their beliefs, their values, their morals, whatever the case may be. We've all at this stage of our lives heard that, we can agree to disagree. And we certainly can. I think the issue that comes into play in relationships and why that self-centeredness that is connected to pride becomes so problematic is because too oftentimes human nature says that you need to be persuaded that I'm right. What I'm saying, what I'm doing, the way I'm going about this situation or circumstance or belief system or what have you, it's almost to suggest that my way is the right way and the only way. And the reality of it is just because that's how you would do it doesn't mean that that's how the other person would do it. So when you're looking at what that self-centeredness looks like within the context of pride and within your romantic relationship, it's really important to understand that in order for you to combat the pride in the form of self-centeredness, you have to be willing to consider that your opinion, your belief, what you value, what you think is important is not the only thing that matters. You all have heard me say before on these lives and when I was still doing my podcast, I hate the saying happy wife, happy life. I think that it is such a selfish, self-centered statement that suggests that the husband in the relationship shouldn't have feelings, or that his feelings don't matter, or what he values or what he thinks or feels is not important. And that's just simply not true. And when you find yourself in a relationship when that is happening, that is a clear indication to you that pride is running amok in your relationship. When I talked about pride hindering connection when I first opened up, how can you possibly have a healthy, sustainable relationship with someone and to connect on all levels of intimacy when you're not genuinely connected to the person? In other words, because the person is navigating the relationship with this air of pride, with this prideful nature about them, that how can you trust that? How can you be intimate with someone? And of course, and you've heard me say before, there's more than sexual intimacy. There's other types of intimacy. How can you feel safe to be completely vulnerable and transparent and to trust someone that you don't have a healthy connection with? And the reason why you don't have a healthy connection with them is because you're scapegoated all the time. You're made to be the problem all the time. What you say, what you think, what you feel doesn't have relevance in the relationship. And that's not okay. So you got to take a step back and look at, is this you? Is anything that I have described thus far you? Because if you cannot be vulnerable, if you cannot be authentically who you are in your relationship, flaws and all, if you can't be safe to be yourself in your weakest, most vulnerable areas, how on God's green earth can you have a strong bond in that relationship? How can you ever feel comfortable to share your perspective or to share your feelings within the relationship if pride has such a stronghold in the relationship that vulnerability is like a curse word and you can't experience that? If you're someone who has a hard time or you blatantly refuse to apologize or to compromise in your romantic relationship, or truth be told, in any relationship, that is a telltale sign that you are being anchored by, you are being held down by, you are in bondage to pride. One of the things that I used to say growing up is that I would never be willing to apologize for something that I meant to say. And as I reflect back on that, there's significance in that in two different ways, meaning this. I'm someone who, even as a child, I was always and have always been very deliberate and intentional in the things that I say and how I say it. The problem with that, though, is I have no control over how someone else may be interpreting what I'm saying, right? So I know me, and in most cases, the people that I'm, interacting with know me at least to some degree, but there's always room for misinterpretation. And when you go through those times where maybe someone has misinterpreted what you've said, or they didn't misinterpret what you said, they know exactly what you said and what you meant, it's not so much that you're apologizing for what you said. You're apologizing for how what you said made the other person feel. My husband and I had a situation this morning where you all probably don't know this about me, but I have a smart mouth. I am like the queen of sarcasm. And one of the highlights of our relationship is we do an exorbitant amount of bantering. We do an exorbitant amount of bantering, but it is in a very healthy way. And I said something to him this morning that I've said probably, goodness gracious, I don't know, 500 times in the past 10 years. But he took it differently this morning, and I was pissed. I was initially extremely angry because my brain said, you know me. You profess every day of our life that I'm your wife and you know me. So why would you think that I said that deliberately to hurt you or to deliberately disrespect you? But the reality of it was that was his interpretation. So I had to apologize because it was never my intention to be disrespectful, because that's not how I get down. It was never my intention to hurt him, but I still had to apologize. But here's the thing, and this is something that I'm guilty of, and I know that I'm not alone on this island. I was so pissed that even though my apology was sincere, it is a strong possibility that it didn't come across as sincere because I was in my feelings in the moment about the fact that you say you know me all day, every day. Why? What is going on right now in this moment that you would think that I would ever say or do anything to disrespect you? But that's irrelevant. That doesn't matter. What matters is his interpretation was that I was disrespectful. So even though it was not my intention, the ownership was on me to offer the apology, not so much for what I said, but for how what I said made him feel. And therein lies the compromise, folks. Therein lies the compromise that creates the opportunity and the space for each of us to look pride straight in the face and say, you have no room here, you have no purpose here. I'm not going to allow you to anchor my relationship and to cause problems where there don't need to be problems. The other area that pride rears its ugly head in a relationship is when people are overly confident, right? And there's a variety of reasons. It's a variety of reasons why people may be overly confident. What I caution you to consider is this. We're all flawed. We are all flawed. Me having every degree known to man doesn't mean that I'm infallible. It means that I'm flawed with degrees, right? And we all are. We all have opportunity for growth and improvement every day of our lives. So we have to do the self-inventory. We have to do the self-check. We have to evaluate, am I coming across as prideful in my relationship because of whatever my skill set is, because of whatever my knowledge base is? Maybe you do think that you're smarter than your partner, but that still doesn't, and that may be true, but that still doesn't give you a license to engage with them in a belittling or demeaning manner. My husband says to me that he can tell when I'm really frustrated with him because I talk really slow, and he said I treat him like has special needs, or like he has cognitive deficiencies or delays, right? He's in the background laughing. But that's something that you have to take a look at, because somebody on the outside looking in might interpret me doing that as me being overconfident because I have a doctorate and he doesn't. But let me be the first to tell you, yes, degrees are, to some degree, they're an indication of one's intellect, but having degrees does not necessarily mean that you're smarter than the person that you're in a relationship with. There are plenty of people on this earth who don't have any college degrees and no certifications at all, who are absolutely, positively brilliant. They are brilliant men, they are brilliant women, they have taken the necessary steps to educate themselves and to empower themselves. So don't get so full of yourself that you think that just because the all signs point to the fact that you may be intellectually smarter than your partner or more book smart than your partner, that it gives you an air of overconfidence, and that's how you show up in the relationship, talking down to your partner and being belittling, degrading, and demeaning. The connection to that is that when you come into the relationship with pride navigating, and that pride is manifesting itself in the form of overconfidence, if you're not careful, it's going to result in you making poor decisions. It's going to result in you engaging in things like belittling, degrading, demeaning, gaslighting. Those are all poor decisions if you want to have a healthy, fulfilling, and sustainable relationship. And you cannot continue to show up with pride ruling in your relationship and think that your partner is going to trust you. You know what they're going to trust? They are going to trust that you are going to verbally, emotionally, and psychologically beat them up. They are going to trust that you're going to continue to navigate the relationship with this air of pride that's consuming you and making you think that you're so muchy much and they're so less than. And it's going to damage the trust. It's going to destroy the relationship. And it is going to lend itself to additional problems that can erode the integrity, health, strength, and sustainability of your relationship. My husband is texting me, telling me that he wants me to let you all know that he apologized to me earlier too. I don't know. I told him don't apologize to me. I ain't want to hear it. But anyway, that's a different topic. So what I really, really, really want you to think about doing, folks, is in order to confront this thing called pride, you have to take responsibility and accountability for how you're showing up. You have to be open and receptive to accepting healthy and constructive criticism. You have to be open and receptive to having healthy dialogue that is going to create that safe space for each of you to be able to communicate in a mature, responsible way what you need. What do you need from your partner that is going to be instrumental in helping you to get aligned, stay aligned, and to shut down pride, to release yourself from that anchor that pride has had on your relationship. You do not want your relationship to be killed because of pride. Own your stuff. Take responsibility and accountability for how you're showing up. Stop making a conscious decision to externalize and scapegoat and blame your partner for everything. Own your contribution. Evaluate yourself and determine if pride is an anchor in your relationship that's weighting the relationship down and causing problems that don't need to be there. If both parties would just be more intentional about learning how to humble yourself. That's all I have. Pride does not have to be the anchor that destroys your relationship, but whether or not that happens, it is up to you. Pull the anchor up. Pull the anchor up today so that you can experience some smooth sailing in your relationship. That's all I have. I'll see y'all next Wednesday.